G'day, guys. So today I want to talk about a technique called metafiction. So it's something that really throws people off when they hear the word. So don't lose me yet. I'm going to explain exactly what metafiction is, how it works, and I mean you've probably heard lots and lots of teachers talking about it, and we're going to see how we can use it in our own work, or how we can spot it when it's around. So I mean, it's a really simple technique when you think about it. It's literally a writer who is pointing at you and saying, "Hey, you're reading a book," or "Hey, you're watching a movie." So then you kind of have to go, "Oh, crap, I'm in a movie." More complicated than that, but what I'll do, let me give you a quick. I'm going to go across. I found a masterclass by a author who I think is very, very fantastic. I'm going to talk to you about that one first, because I think that's a good starting point. Okay, so according to whoever's writing this, written by masterclass, I'm doubting that. I think it's written by a person. I doubt this was written by just a company, because I think a company, although it's technically a person, or a corporation is technically a person, I still believe that they lack the ability to write content by themselves. So according to this, using metafiction allows the authors to create an added layer to a fictional work, forming an unconventional literary experience for readers. Wow, interesting. That sounds fancy and confusing. It's got books. It's got books, so you can look at the books flowing around. That's fantastic. All right, yeah. Let's have a look. What do we got? What do we got? Let's start with what is metafiction and what is the purpose, because I feel like that is a good one. So it's a pretty well expressed thing. So metafiction it's a self-conscious style, because the writer is essentially showing you what they think and how what they feel, because if you've ever had a teacher complain that you should show, don't tell, this is at the crux of what that's about. Because if you're writing something, you want to show something truer. Like, you might be writing a completely fake story that's completely made up, but the challenge is the idea behind the story is going to be bigger and much truer with what's going on in the world. So, yeah, I mean, the way that they run it is they say it's self-aware. He's infused perspective. That sounds fancy. Okay, yada yada. All right. So, main purpose to highlight the dichotomy. I bet you're wondering what a dichotomy is. So, dichotomy is left, right, left, right. So it's a opposites. Oh, sorry. Die means two. Gotomi. Let's look it up. Screw it. Dichotomy meaning. A division or contrast between two things. I got half of it right. I said division. I just said two. No, I said two. Two is good enough. So, yeah, so the dichotomy between the real world and the fictional world of a novel. Note how I explored exactly that in the first few lines of this video. I've told you, I was like, oh, it's this contrast between one thing and the other thing. A writer is reminding you, it's like, hey, even though I'm making up some funny movie, what's the real thing I'm telling you about this movie? And that's the key. Okay, so metafiction can be used to parody literary genre conventions. This is lots of fancy words. Subvert expectations, to reveal truths, or offer a view of the human condition. Okay, great. So that's simple, right? I mean, the problem is, like, I feel like this is very simple to me, but it may not be so simple for most people, because actually, I don't know. It's like, tell me if it is or isn't, because to me, it's literally a writer who's pointing at the camera and saying, "Hey, I'm making a book." Like, that is in my mind what it is. And really, really good writers, they always do that. Like, if you're ever watching a film that does that well, yeah, they do that. If you're watching a film that does it badly, I don't want to point any fingers, but there are definitely films and books that do that. If they do it badly, it feels like I don't believe this anymore. If if a writer can keep your suspension of disbelief, so if you still believe you're in the story and you're recognizing that they're being written about in a story, so like the characters in the story are being written about, that's then going to make you walk off to the bathroom, have a look in the mirror, and wonder if you're in a story. Deep. But ultimately, that's the crux of what I say crux a lot. Yeah, basically the idea that they're trying to do. All right. In simple terms, our text here says it's breaking the fourth wall. So the boundary between the writer and the reader. So it's basically blurring the lines between real life and fiction. Because you've definitely, I mean, look, everyone loves, I guess, a lot of people I speak to, especially today, back in the past, because I'm old, they used to say, they would actually say, oh, yeah, I love this type of genre. I love this kind of book. These days, I much more hear people saying, no, no, no. I like true stories. I wanted to show me the truth, so we have this we're running away from this concept of a story that's fake. The problem with that thinking is many texts that create something that are saying a story, they are teaching you something real about the world, and ultimately we use that to kind of like soften the blow to society. All right, it's like these people are acting weird in this society, so I'm going to write about this thing. So I love a self-reflective. See, I don't even know what reflexivity is. Like self-reflexivity. Luckily, in the context of this sentence, the person has said or something else. They have told us what self-reflexivity might be based on the words that came right after it to reflect on their own artistic process, right? So think about that as a technique. So self-reflexivity or self-consciousness. So let's have a look at the definition, right? Because we'll see if it's close to that. Yeah, Cambridge Dictionary. That's a good dictionary. Ooh, there we go. So it's exactly what we just said it was. A self-reflexive book, film, process, etc., refers to itself, its writer, or another work by its writer. That's pretty useful. So notice the word self-conscious. It's just realizing that it's a book. And really good text, like they really pepper this stuff in. Like I say pepper in because like say a good steak. Sorry if you're not a steak eater. You pepper on a little bit of pepper. Oh, it's delicious. A little bit of salt. Oh, just tasty. Good steak. Oh damn. Sorry, I like some steaks. Okay. But having said that, if I go to the steak pepper station, and if I had not rolled on the lid correctly, and if I go bloop, and then the lid falls off, and all the pepper falls on the steak, it's not going to taste good. That's the key detail about writing well as using this technique. So what I wanted to do today specifically, I'll get into it. So I'm going to specifically talk about certain texts and like, look, if you're studying them at school, university, etc., like it's useful to think about them in this way. So I just need to define it before I can go through that. Oh, but it's experimental. So metafiction is experimental in nature. Yeah, we get it. All right, so it's essentially pointing at us. Yes. Now it's giving some examples. All right, I think that's pretty good for as far as this one. I reckon we don't need that no more. Let's now think about which texts have been breaking the fourth wall and why they've been breaking the fourth wall. Because notice how I'm using a word that's much easier to understand because in a movie, it's way quicker to go, oh, the person who's meant to be talking to people on the screen are now looking at me. How terrifying. Because then it makes you think, oh, they're not just talking to this black lens. They are speaking to me, a person. So we're speaking together about whatever thing they're talking about. So to get you, I mean, look, if you have ever come across metafiction, you know, even if you feel like you don't understand it or you think this is what it is, like, yeah, write down what you think about a comment. Please do say, and I will be happy to answer if something turns up. Okay. So let's have a look. See, blah blah blah. So I want to find some text, but I mean, look. Ultimately, I see metafiction as a wink to the audience. It's like, hey, you're watching a movie. Like it's as weird as that, to put it bluntly. But let's have a look at which text I was playing with. So, okay. First and foremost, we've got William Shakespeare, because I like talking about Shakespeare stuff because he writes good stuff. Okay. So there is a text called the Tempest. So before I tell you why it's absolutely important for a metafictive link, look, if you like history, please do stick around and don't lose me at the Shakespeare reference. But basically, what the story is about this bro called Prospero. He, because we're in the modern world, there was a movie about it, and they made Prospero a woman because you can change the genders and everything for everyone in today's day. But having said that, it was acted very well, so I probably shouldn't judge that one because it was actually done well. And I'm like, I don't care if it was done well. Having said that, Prospero or Prosperina uses some magical powers to shipwreck people he doesn't like or she doesn't like, and makes them end up on this island and be like, oh no, they're stuck here now. It's almost like they've been imprisoned on an island. Think about this island like Australia. I mean, you got unwanted people from a particular society and you send them to Australia, and then they'll probably try and get an accent or something. So what it's playing with is this concept of power, because ultimately he is the boss of the island. He's got magical powers and he can kind of control everything going on there, which is amazing for someone on a fake island. But we're now asking the question of like, well, if he's on a fake island and if the people on the island are in a fake place, if he can't leave the island, is he super powerful or not? So even though he's like directing what's happening to people's lives on the island, ultimately he's gonna age and go the way of the dodo anyway. Which would be really useful if Shakespeare was making this as one of his last plays to kind of explain why he was doing that, right? That would be useful. Oof. If I was close to retirement age and I had been making shows or, plays or movies for about 2 decades, then perhaps it might be time to go, hey, this thing that I'm making, check it out. You're watching a movie, but also it's fake, and it's pretty basic. Like, did you see how like I made that that scene and like we had these curtains and then we pull the curtains away and then you see amazing things and then the curtains go and then the show's over. It's almost like a metaphor for life, isn't it? Oh. Anyway, I won't go into that too much. But this was, I think it was 1610 to 1611. So Shakespeare, he retired in 1611 and he actually passed away in 1613. So it's almost like he was talking to us about his own life and times and how important or unimportant he felt. I mean, it could have just been like a humble, like, hey, I'm making a thing for you guys. I think it sucks, but I hope you like it. Like, it's a bit of that, you know? So that's the beauty of this one. And then there's this other old lady. Sorry if you don't see yourself as an old lady, but I'll show you a picture of her. Wait. Okay. Where is she? Oh, yes. I don't know if you can see that lady there. Anyway, she is. I'm trying to get a better picture of her. I can't find it. Anyway, it's a woman called Margaret Atwood. Oh, there she is. Ah, okay. I don't know if you can see that, but essentially, Margaret Atwood is the author of A Handmaid's Tale. So, The Handmaid's Tale, which came out in the early 90s, but then she redid it, I think in 2016. But like, if you ever asked her to comment on feminism or women's issues or any of that stuff, she's like, I'm not a feminist, but I write books like this. That's a good writer. That's a bloody good writer. If you have a writer who can make you kind of go like, oh, I'm thinking, and I don't know what's going on. That's ultimately a good writer. So essentially, what she did for the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare, I can't remember if it was Shakespeare's death or Shakespeare something, she made a book called Hag-Seed. So it's Hag-Seed. So a hag is like a witch. And then seed in a traditional sense would be the offspring or the baby of a witch. Man, that's an ugly title. Fun fact, the king who was in charge in Shakespeare's time, he was convinced that witches were kind of like causing problems in his country. Actually, I'm gonna do a share screen again. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry for doing so much share screening, but I've got to show you the book because I'm not lying. This is a real book. My Latin spelling is quite bad, so if I spell it wrong, my apologies. Daemonology. I don't know if I got the pronunciation correct. I think that's Latin. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, I can get the full book. How good's this? Okay. Oh, they made a game out of it. This is great. Okay. Okay. So, actually, I'll show you the Gutenberg one because this is the thing. I kind of want to look at the game now as well, but that's the side by the by. So demonology. So basically, it was written by King James I because in 1597, right? So he's essentially he's writing in response to someone being like, "Do witches exist? Is witchcraft a thing?" And so now this guy's going, "Bruh, it's real." So essentially, yeah, it's so King James is essentially he was in the witch trials in Scotland, and essentially he wrote a book on it. He's like, hey, this is why we can send witches to prison. Wow. Wouldn't it be interesting if he became a king? And if you were writing at that time, like if you were making movies at his time, you'd probably make a movie that painted someone who saw witchcraft as a bit dodgy. pretty good. Okay. I want to check out this game. Okay, before we go on, I've got to check out the game. Oh, great. This is great. I've got to add to my wish list. Oh, come on. I'm not logged in. Okay. I'm going to put that on another screen so I can save it. Okay. Let's unshare my screen. Oh, that was a fun find, I must say. So look, just because you enjoy studying does not mean that you should not enjoy life. So to come back to Margaret Atwood, she writes about a character Felix who he's a bit old, and he's essentially he's getting booted out of this. He's doing like a stage production of like I guess like he works in theater, and he's like getting boot because he's old. Bit mean. So because he's out now, he's like, what am I going to do? So he gets a job in jail. I really don't give context, eh? So he gets a job making plays in jail. Now there's a problem. There's a central female character in the Tempest, and if you're in a men's prison, how do you get a central female character in that one? More importantly, if you were living in the 15 or 1600s and it was really frowned upon for women to work in theater, how would you get women to do the jobs in theater? Or would you just do some other weird thing like getting guys to dress up as girls and say, hey, we're doing it for work? It's our job. And somehow getting away with something that was quite illegal in every other case at that time. People think that we're only smart today, but there have been geniuses throughout history. Okay, so anyway, so he makes this. So essentially, the story he's ripping off Shakespeare, and she's ripping off. Sorry, Margaret Atwood is the lady. She's ripping off Shakespeare, and she's writing a story that's about staging a story. So she's adapting the original Tempest and then changing it for a modern audience, because we don't live at a time when we take witchcraft that seriously in the modern I was going to say the W word, the Western world. So we don't consider that to be a major thing. We don't go, all right, there's witches in general. Like, you don't have your politicians going, the reason why that thing happened is witches. Imagine if we had like the president saying, yep, just because the witches did it. So we live in a different context, which means we have to speak to a different audience. Wow, it's almost like, can you notice something here? What I'm doing is I'm discussing the metafictive elements of these texts, which is then tying it entirely to our societies and how the societies of ours are running, how societies in the past have run. It's almost like it's a wink and a nod that the authors do, right? So how about I'll give you the real punch in the guts for modern society. So anyway, there was this book written mostly in 1948, but because history has a hilarious irony, it only actually got published in 1949. But the mainstay of the book was written in 1948, and because the writer was like super into that year, what he did is he named it. He named it 1948, and what he did is he put the 4 after the 8, and then he just bumped the 8 closer to the 19. Post in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. At least I'm entertained. Anyway, the book's 1984. So 1984 by George Orwell, which ultimately, this is about a character called Winston, super English name, who's living in a, I mean, let's call it an authoritarian dictatorship. Australia. Uh, where cameras watch you, history is rewritten, and language is controlled by the government. The government's controlling it. Ah, this fake story from the past that's about the future that was in the past of the modern world today. Couldn't he have just done it about the future? Like, really, bro? Put it 500 years in the future. Anyway, so what it does, I guess, like, I'll give you the Metafiction link. It's always showing things that people are not supposed to be reading. It's showing how they change the language in the story. It's showing how the slogans of like how things are meant to happen, how we're meant to believe things, and it's saying that there are people who are, controlling other people, controlling what they believe, what they think. It's like being in a country and then, you think things are a certain way and then you go to a different country and you're like, wow, I thought something else. It's because look, in some countries things do change. Like we often say like, oh, the uh, I guess the awful South Africans who were living around during apartheid. Ah, how could they? You have to then consider, is everyone in that society, are they 100% doing all those things? Were all the people in Nazi Germany, were they all just doing exactly the things and being complicit and just going, yeah, we'll do it, yay, but on the one hand, there is that aspect and there is, the societal aspect, but, by and large, people are just the product of their times. And sometimes propaganda can be very, very good. Sometimes it can be really bad because it's like the old Hitler line. Not to quote Hitler too much, but he said, "You repeat the lie enough times, and it will become truth." Which, unfortunately, when you kind of search through history, you realize that there's not necessarily that it becomes truth, but it clouds the judgment of the populations enough for it to then be the case, like for something to just work, which is effing scary. Yes. Anyway, let's talk about history and books and stuff. All right. So that's 1984. So it's about power and control. And I mean, look, I guess the big running joke, not running. It's not a joke at all. It's a satire. It's a satire, but it's not a joke. A satire means a text or a book or a film that is making like light or fun of a particular concept. But sometimes they're really dark concepts, and it's like it's so dark you can't laugh. So like I mean, for example, Handmaid's Tale. Let's see what. Oh, okay. Oh, I don't want to give this one away. I don't want to give this one away. Oof. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to give it away. I'm going to show you a screen grab of it so that you can figure out for yourself what's going on. And I'm going to use text that's not as confusing. So, what did okay? Yeah, we get it. Yes. All right, let's try this one. It's Literary Hub. All right, I've got to share screen. How do I share screen? There we go. Button. Yes, that one. Check it out. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I don't want to pay for Literary Hub. I don't even know who they are. Oh, that's so cool. They got a bunch of books. Skip ad, please. On how she came to write The Handmaid's Tale. This is fun. Okay. All right. Some books want the reader, others want the writer. Handmaid's Tale has done both. Okay. I'm gonna kind of skip. Oh, I don't know if you can actually read this because they're small. So basically, The Handmaid's Tale has not been out of print since it was published in 1985. Wow, 1985. I wonder what happened then. Yes, we know, we know, we know. Sorry, I thought it was 1990, but I forgot 1985. Da, ba, da. Ooh. So now, Atwood's saying she didn't anticipate any of this importance. She did not know that people are going to care about it. You know? Okay. She began writing the book in the spring of 1984 while living in West Berlin. If you know much about Berlin, you've got West Berlin. That was where the Allies, the Allies, okay, America, Europe, all of them folks, they were in control of Western Berlin, and then Russia, who kind of were the reason why World War II was won by the Allies. They took over East Berlin. Problem was, the Russians believed in communism, and the Europeans and Americans believed in capitalism. So they just built a wall and split it down the middle. This city that wasn't theirs. It's almost like colonization. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Okay, so at the time, Berlin was still there, right? And initially, she called it Offred because Fred's someone's name, so it's of Fred, like of this man. Okay, that's good. And then she changed the name. Blah blah blah. Numerous journal articles. Yada yada yada. Okay, go go go. I want more. That's nice. Nations never build apparently radical forms of government on foundations that aren't there already. That is a key, absolutely key detail. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not giving it away. Okay, blah blah blah. Has publication. Yada yada yada. Sorry if I'm reading fast, but basically, yeah. And she's writing on a typewriter. Okay. Typewriters are what people used to write on before there were computers for everyone. That's funny. She's old. She even said it. Personal computers were in their infancy in 1985. Ah, I remember. Okay, then she left Berlin and then she went to Canada. All right, cool, cool, cool. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. I know, but tell me more about it. It's so good when you have an author actually write about it. Okay. So here's the key. Page 47. The book appeared in Canada in 1984 and bounced on anxious readers. Could it happen here? People are wondering. Okay. Okay. So book came out. Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. So it was a story about the future. What if premise? So, for instance, if you wanted to seize power in the United States, abolish liberal democracy, and set up a dictatorship, how would you go about it? What would be your cover story? It would not resemble any form of communism or socialism. Those would be too unpopular. It might use the name of democracy as an excuse for abolishing liberal democracy. That's not out of the question, though. I didn't consider it possible in 1985. Okay, interesting. Okay. She's got some good stuff. So the regime in The Handmaid's Tale operates under the guise of strict Puritanism. So these women are not only considered a harem. What does anyone know what a harem is? Anyway, a harem is where one male boss bro has a group of ladies who can please him in the household thing. And the only people who can work in the harem are due to have had their nether regions like the bits chopped off there's two things hanging off the bottom that creates the seed of a hag. Jesus, woman's dark. Anyway, so intended to provide delight as well as children. What? Wait, wait. Oh, it's basically delight for this king character and as well as like give kids for the king. They're functional rather than decorative. Interesting, 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 right? Huh. So she's just talking about a book at this stage. Okay, all right. Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking. All right. So nations never build apparently radical forms of government on foundations that aren't there already. So thus, China replaced state bureaucracy with a similar state bureaucracy under a different name, the People's Republic of China. Anyway, was it that? I forgot. Anyway, the USSR, I forgot the acronym. Anyways, you figure it out. Replace the dreaded Imperial Secret Police with an even more dreaded secret police and so forth. So, very, very true as far as how things went. And then she goes, the deep foundations of the United States. So when her thinking was not the comparatively recent 18th century Enlightenment structures of the Republic, where the talk of equality, the separation of church and state, but the heavy-handed theocracy of 17th century Puritan New England, with its marked bias against women, which would need only the opportunity of a period of social chaos to reassert itself. Oh, beautifully presented. Anyway, so she's basically talking about the like an original theocracy. So a theocracy is a country run by a biblical or a religious leader. So a country run by a religious leader. Okay. So one where they would use the Bible passage to justify itself, towards the Old Testament. So new ruling class, yada yada. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, geez. So as one of the axioms of the novel is the fertility in the industrialized West has come under threat, the rare desirable would include fertile women, always on the human wish list. Reproductive control, essentially. So basically, it's who can create the babies. And I mean, if you look at problem socially, it's usually, many countries are lowering the birth rates and then others are raising. Or not, well, no comment. No comment. Ah, okay, good, good, good. So she's going on about like the Puritans, like essentially all of it. She's very well researched, right? You got Gilead. Okay, blah blah blah. Humans, yada 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 yada, and presence of these. Yes, yes, yes. Christian itself. Good, good, good. Yes, feminist dystopia. Good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm getting a bit stuck in this because there's a point I'm remembering. I don't I'm not seeing yet. Yes, yes, yes. World War II, yes. French Revolution, Cambodia, yep. Gilead. Yes, yes, yes. They will be here, don't worry. I'm really like side note here. Okay, anyway. There was another revolution that happened at that particular time. All right, I'm kind of like guiding it. So was Atwood comment on revolution in 19. I'm sure she commented on this. Well, AI says that she did. Why didn't she say it? Bro, just give me the link. I want the link. See, it's got a little linky button there. Ah, there we go. Yes, spoilers. I don't believe Reddit. I care. Yeah, actually, that's true. So, I mean, this is what she did say. She said, Margaret Atwood made a point of saying everything that happens in the book are things that have already happened to women in other parts of the world or times in history. Yeah, and so people are just exploring like what examples of that, and yeah. Anyway, so this particular revolution, 6 years before the publication. See what I mean? She never talks about it. She never talks about it, but she shows it in swathes. Not to mention there was a yeah, I guess like the more communist forces were working with other forces who then they took control. So it's interesting how that happened. Okay, anyway, boy, I got side notes there. Okay, beside the point. You don't need to know all this. Um, okay, so we got to Margaret Atwood's *Handmaid's Tale*. We got to 1984. We got to *The Tempest*, and we talked a little bit about *Hag-Seed*. So can you see it's in a few texts? And then, I mean, look, as well as that, like I don't have huge amounts of time today because I have a stupid meeting at 10. But that's not a stupid meeting. It's a really good meeting. I shouldn't diminish the quality of my meetings. It's actually I really like the person, so yeah. I think I'm just frustrated because I wanted to sit around talking to you guys for ages, and I've only got like an hour. Okay. So there's a text called The Crucible, which I mean, if you're a high schooler, you're probably having to study The Crucible. And what that talks about is it explores the Salem the witch trials, which in a like it's pretty relevant to be concerned about in a country like the US because I believe this happened just before the US had the like the break from England. So essentially, we have a theocracy in charge. So in Salem, they're like, oh, the witches did it, and then the government courts are then used to put the ladies in jail, and essentially, yeah, they cop it. So that's problematic because, I mean, also, this is important for the US because this was on such a small scale in comparison to the witch trials in Europe. Like, yeah, the witchcraft trials in Europe were like, yes, thousands and thousands of people. The Salem witch trials were like maybe 12. Can't remember the exact number. To give you a bit of context for how, yeah, it's like different places kind of they carry the things from the past and they'll bring it with, and then people are looking for an opportunity to expand that and turn that into the thing. So essentially, yeah, that story it's a bit of an allegory because so an allegory, if for those of you who don't know, it's referring to something else. So it's not talking about the Salem witch trials in the 1700s. It's actually talking about the 1950s in America because there's this problem. In 1945, the communists and the capitalists worked together, teamwork, to beat the fascists.